Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yes. Yeah. And it is kind of a little bit more fully fledged, and actually for anyone listening as well, they can get a bit more better context from it. Hmm. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Your ability to build your early stage product or tech right. So, whether you want to build it yourself or get other people to do it, this is make or break. Now, that's why we do this every Tuesday. I go out there and annoy the believing Jesus out of people like Nelly, Eugenio, and Afonso, and ask them to come and help us here for an hour with whatever questions we may have on that early stage product or tech. And what I mean by that is that they can be on anything to do with early stage building, whether it's product roadmaps, design, prototype, testing, automation, AI, full stack, tech debt, uh, launching your MVP, and anything in between or beyond for that matter, really. This is the place to be. And we are only going to be here, though, for the next 55 minutes. So if you do want some clarity and you want to ask some questions, my advice is to join us as soon as you can and join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. And once you're here, then all you need to do is drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic. You start introducing yourself and fire away with whatever question you have. For those of you that are on the live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions live. So if you do want to ask um, any questions, you will have, and you want answers for them, you will have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. The quickest way you can do that is to go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit, you'll find Startup Product and Tech Q&A 172. Once you do that, click join. It's a quick registration on Luma, and there you'll find today's link. And obviously through that, then you'll be able to join us here on the audio call on Microsoft Teams. Now, the way this is going to work today, as every other day, is that we have some quick introductions. Then I ask the panelists for their main do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage building. And then we start taking questions from yourselves. By the way, if your questions today are not on product and tech, please save them for the other conversations we run. On Mondays, we help founders with talent, so finding, keeping the right people. On Tuesdays, as you can see today, it's building your early stage product and tech. And then on Wednesdays, it's growth. So tomorrow will be sales, marketing, and all that jazz. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. The second Friday of each month is UK Startup Law. And the third Friday of each month is UK Startup Finances. Now, all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can RSVP to any of them via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. And whilst you're there, by the way, at the top and bottom of the screen, you should see a link, a WhatsApp icon there that you can click on and hopefully join us here on WhatsApp. So we've got some interesting groups on WhatsApp of founders, investors, operators, of course, our amazing panelists, and people in the ecosystem, basically, for you to join and get help, but also connect with each other. Now, without further ado, let's get on to some intros. My name's Anton Call. I'm an Albanian in London, working with startups normally right after they get investment. I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and some accelerators, and help some angels and family offices with their due diligence and assessment. We'll start with the lady of the house, Naili, then Afonso, and last but not least, Eugenia, please.
Hi, I'm Naili Makangu. People know me as the Mary Poppins of startups. I started my career as a software engineer, and I now wear multiple hats that goes from leading technical teams to leading technical projects, as well as a bit of product development and management in the mix. The best way of describing myself is if you have a problem, you're thinking about what to build, how to build, and you're worried about talking Klingon with developers, then speak to me. I'll be able to facilitate the process. And more importantly, I've helped startup go from 0 to 1, 0 to acquisition, as well as just scaling in different markets and industries.
Hi there, my name is Afonso. I'm a lead product designer at Sneak, a cybersecurity company. I specialize in B2B SaaS companies, and especially those in more like complex domains like cybersecurity or banking. I work across the entire software development life cycle. So if you have any questions, be it on like product strategy, this product discovery, all the way through working with engineers and handoff, then I should be able to help.
Hi, I'm Eugenio Goliotto, fractional CTO and serial founder. I've been doing startups in the last 12 years across Bay Area, London, and Italy. I've led different teams in the US, Australia, and Europe. And currently I am focused on generative AI. actually in the last 3 years with a couple of applications in production with important scales, and I'm happy to be here.
That's amazing, team. Thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Well, you've heard them, people. We've got 3 brilliant panelists with us today, and you'd better make your way from whichever live stream you're on right now, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, and get your behind here in Microsoft Teams. Because unfortunately, we can't monitor your questions live there. But I'm here with these 3 brilliant individuals trying to help founders with whatever questions you have as you build your early stage product and tech. When it comes to that, I'm sure you panelists have seen some horrible stuff out there, but also some cool stuff and very useful stuff that founders do when it comes to early stage building. And based on that, what is one do and one don't that is quite important to you when it comes to early stage? And if we can please not use the same logic for both the do and the don't. Maybe we can start with Eugenio on this, then Afonso, and last but not least, Nelly, please.
Yeah, so the general narrative is that TAM needs to be high, or big, so the total addressable market. But sometimes very successful examples focus on the niches first, and then they expand. So in the do, I would say do explore how deeply you can connect with your customer, even if the market initially is not that big. In the don't waste your time building too much, but just keep it very simple.
Sorry, Anton, did we say one thing? One do, one don't?
Yes, please, Afonso. So one do and one don't each if you can.
I would say one is do take inspiration from other products that you see out there, but don't replicate. So try to learn from them if you think something works, but always consider your audience and your own product, and know that these can be different and context matters a lot. So always keep that lens, always try to adapt to what you have and reach out to your own customers to see if that works.
And from my perspective, definitely the first thing I was going to say, but has already been mentioned, is about just emphasizing the point that's been made on overbuilding or building too much too soon. So from my perspective, I will say, from a don't go for everything at the same time. There are a lot of startups that start and make the mistakes of having multiple segments, multiple industry that could benefit from that, or within the same industry, multiple areas, or multiple geography. Well, the thing is, you don't have the resources, you haven't validated your idea very well at the beginning, so don't spread yourself too thin, as you won't be able to make it. And in terms of the do, I would say do make sure that you spend a lot of time with your customers, especially early on. I get a lot of startups that will say that they're building based on their own experience, or they've spoken to friends and families and or their colleagues from the same place they work. You actually want to be able to go outside of your comfort zone and the people that you trust, because they're going to be nice to you, and you want to go a lot further. So do spend the time to really talk to people, and don't just rely on things like surveys and things like that keeps you in your within your comfort zone.
Thank you very much for your do's and don'ts, team. By the way, everyone, we've had about 290,000 people join us since we've started this, and obviously none of that would have happened without people like Nelly, Afonso, and Eugenia. So if you panelists would like to drop your LinkedIn URLs in the chat, in case either people that may join us here on Microsoft Teams now, or the ones that will be going through the recording want to reach out and follow you, please feel free to do that. Maybe a couple of words about what is your strength and what you like to focus most alongside that URL, that would be useful. But otherwise, we'll start with some questions that were sent in to us. I'll put the first one in the chat, but I'll read it out loud for the live streams. To me, kind of felt a bit basic as a question, but maybe we can try and work on that. So he says, we're building a travel app in Glasgow that curates local experiences, but our feedback process is informal. So we often miss valuable insights. What strategies and tools would you recommend for establishing feedback loops that are both systematic and adaptable as we go? Maybe we can start with Afonso, then go on to Nelly, and last but not least, Eugenio, please.
Sure. Oh, this is a great one. So I would talk about like maybe process and then tools after. I think tools are secondary. There are plenty of tools out there, but I think if the process isn't right, then the tools don't really matter. So the first things I would say in terms of capturing feedback is that there are different angles to do it. Some are related to the sales process as well. So if we're talking about whether it's a PLG kind of like sells itself or sales led. If it's sales led, I would say that is definitely an angle that is often underused. So if you have a sales led business, oftentimes like your salespeople or your customer success people are already capturing a lot of feedback. And what I often see is that the product folk don't tap into that feedback. So what I would say is if your business is sales led, definitely start reaching out to your sales team, understanding the kind of feedback they're having, and make sure that gets to the product folk. Capture that not just in the context of the customer, so you know which customer is saying what, but also what it relates to. And this could be like relates to a specific feature, but more so like the different phases of a customer journey, right? Like, are they giving feedback on the sign up, or on a specific experience like you mentioned, but also like what type of experience is it, like signing up or after or during that experience, or staying up to date during the experience. So really try to understand what that feedback is about. And then the second thing is more proactive, focused initiatives, right? So it's really like you've already identified maybe an area that you want to focus on, and then you reach out to people to do actual like user research, right? And that tends to be a bit more focused. You maybe already got some data or some initial feedback, and you already know the what, so already know the problem area, but you don't know the why, and then you go into it and research further. In terms of tools, often you don't need to overdo it. Like again, if it's sales, you might be using a sales system, so you can capture it there. If it's like user research, sometimes like just surveys. I think like small business, you don't need to invest or overly invest. So things like a Google survey could help plenty. The most important thing is like making sure that people in your business are seeing that feedback, and you can relate the different sources. So you can relate, say, what your sales team got from what your product folk at. And I'll stop here.
From my perspective, actually, I think I'm not going to add too much. Is the that was quite comprehensive, and there's a lot of positive there that I completely agree with from the workflow that's been described. One of the tips that I could add is to also leverage a bit more of AI in your processes. Now, if the question is that you are already capturing and you already have something in place to capture, the thing to me I will look into is the flow of the information within your team and how are you doing that. And has already been said, tools are important, but sometimes they can also be a distraction if there are too many tools that goes into the organization. But how easy it is for sales to feedback what they've learned over a call, for example. This is an issue that we've had in another of the scale-ups I was working for, where sales would spend a lot of time and the product team um, didn't really have enough time with the customers. The sales were doing that work, but they might just give like a basic one-liner on what they think the problem is or what they think a new idea is or what we could work on. So how do we make it easy for them by using a lot of integrations and tools to pull information, let's say from Slack to Jira or ClickUp, whatever tool that we were using internally. And more importantly, now another level with AI is to be able to, especially if that sales sometimes have calls online, how do we get some of the context that initially would have been lost during a handover, but how do we get the context from some of that information into the product team? So that's what I will look into from what you're saying. And one other point that I wanted to maybe leave as a question rather than an answer is when you talk about the feedback loop. This is a really good point because sometimes I find that during the early stage, as you are building relationship with people that could potentially become your customers as well in the future, sometimes the information flows from the company, from the people you're interviewing to the company and stops there. So how do you complete the feedback loop, not just thinking about your team internally, but also on how do you keep those who are supporting you in the process to feel engaged and as part of the process, whether it's through updates, through a community, which obviously community takes a lot of time to maintain, but there are ways you can also use that, especially when some of the people that are joining your initial user research or your initial demos and things like that are already engaged. How do you complete the feedback loop, not just from the perspective of what benefits your team, but also benefits and improve the relationship that we'll have with them? Because if they're already giving you quality inputs, they can do that throughout development, and that will save you a lot of time.
So there's a couple of aspects here. So the first assumption is that in this case, we are talking about feedback loop for currently using the app customers. So for not for sales or for external acquisition. So given that you have your current users of the app, I think there are two ways, especially at this stage, because apparently you are starting now. The first one is having the founder or the product manager like person in the team talking as much as possible to the current users. Incentivizing these is important. Like for example, get these for free if you spend 50 minutes with us or something like that. And this is on the qualitative aspect. On the quantitative one, if you have more features, you can of course track them. So the usage specifically of every feature, both on the front end, so you can place different points to measure the usage of that specific part of the front end, and in the back end, where you can infer some data by analyzing the number of interactions they have with something specific. Consider that Polaroid many years ago paid some people just to test their cameras around the world. And I think Apple did something like that. So in general, the point is that you want to start qualitatively at this stage. And once you understand where to capture signals, then you jump into the quantitative one.
Thank you very much to all three of you. Really appreciate that. I think it's time we go on to another question. Where is it? Question 2. We're planning to go for Series A in the new year. We're a prop tech startup in London developing a smart home dashboard. We've iterated our MVP 3 times, but I keep feeling it's still too complex for first-time users. What frameworks can I use to simplify my MVP and still retain its core functionality? Perhaps we can start with Nelly on this, and then Eugenio, and then Afonso, please. What would you do here?
Well, this is it's a very big question, and I'm just gonna. There's different frameworks that you can use, but I'm just going to go with the one that jumps into my head that you could potentially use is the job to be done. Now, why am I going for that? The issue with the stage you're at, especially if you are going to Series A, my assumptions that I'm making is that you've already you've gone through a lot of different stages. You have an MVP in place. You have a lot of different ideas. You kind of understand your users to at a much deeper level than if you were just really early stage. So you've done a lot of that work. What tends to come up next is when you are building the product. Of course, you get a lot of requirements or requests that comes from everybody that you're interacting with, your investors, your team, and just a lot of different ideas. What it tends to lead to is what you described. You have an MVP, which we can even check whether it should actually be an MVP or a first version of a product at this point. And there is a lot of complexity in there. Now, what do you mean by complexity for the first-time users? Are we talking in terms of onboarding, so that a first-time user coming in doesn't really know what they need to do? The way you will handle it is also very different than it is from people are using the platform and they are dropping off. They are not staying on the platform because they don't understand the value or they don't understand the functionality. So in terms of the simplification, first you need to understand who are your core users, those who will be using it day by day, and understand the workflows and how they will do with they will focus on that. And if you are looking on specifically on what are they going to be done, then the job to be done can help you to take a bit of a step back from what you've built and really go back into the journey of the users and their roles and what is that they need. Once you have those roles and you map it to what you've built, identify the gaps and then identify the bits where you might have engineered the solution. The other thing I will also say, especially if you already have something that is already working, then try to have more interviews and more discussions with the people that are using it. Maybe you don't tell them exactly how to use your platform, watch them as they are using it and let them get them to verbalize what is going through their heads when they're doing that. I found that sometimes the complexity is because as builders, we spend so much time in what we're putting together that we think that it's simple, but then when other people come and use it, they might have a different ideas. So if you just wanted one framework to go back and revisit, I would say the job to be done will be the one to revisit, and the focus is on the primary user of the platform, not the person you're selling it to, but the people who will be using the platform. And you focus on their journey and see how it maps with what you built and identify the challenges that they might have. That will help you to kind of strip the platform a little bit and understand what is really cool to satisfy the work that is required for that user.
So I will try to approach this problem by writing user stories instead of using the design part. Because at the moment, if you struggle to find a good flow, it may be because, of course, the design effort is higher than the text one. So if you just start saying, okay, the user opens the app and finds this, and this, you can definitely bring it to a level where you can also get like Gemini, ChatGPT to simplify these stories. So imagine some apps like Shazam and, for example, Snapchat. So when you enter the app, you are immediately there in the key feature of the app. So similarly, you should reduce everything to first principles and in the text dimension, so with user stories, and you should try to simplify them as much as possible and brainstorm on them, and then you find a way to create the design for them, rather than the other way around, as likely it's happening now.
So I'll double down on the on what was mentioned at first on the jobs to be done. So though I think the user stories suggestion is a good one. Usually when I'm brought into projects and they are like there's problems like this is too complex, they tend to be trying to either do too much or trying to cater for everyone. So what I would encourage to do is first is take a step back, is to think about the users you're targeting. So I don't know exactly in this space, but for example, if you're targeting homeowners versus property managers, um, their needs might be similar, but sometimes they go to a different level of detail, and that already changes the experience. And similarly, even homeowners, I wonder if you have different archetypes of people, right? Like there might be people who just want to save money, others who want a smarter experience overall. And the reason why I mentioned this, it's sometimes like if you're trying to do too much, right? So say for example, if you have someone who wants that smart home experience and they want the kind of functionality and a kind of detail of that functionality, and you providing that same experience to someone who only thing they care is like they want to set something and forget about it, they just want it to be efficient, then those are the ones that will be overwhelmed, right? Because they're being provided a level of detail they don't really care about. So usually these are the kind of things, and I can give you an example. Like for example, what I work in developer tools, so it's a highly tech environment where we design for like developers and security experts. So the kind of language we use and the kind of things, the features we do already assume a really high level of understanding of tech understanding. So I recommend you apply a similar lens when you are creating these dashboards, and think, okay, right, this feature or this experience, am I thinking about like the just a normal homeowner who just wants a bit of tech to make everything more efficient, or am I designing for like a real estate agent or someone else, or like a landlord with multiple houses who maybe wants like a whole nother level of detail and technology, right? So like just to recap, I would say go back, think about the like those user archetypes and their different needs, then apply what was suggested, like those jobs to be done, right? So based on this user or this archetype, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to save money? Are they trying to like reduce anxiety, or just like get more excited about their own experience? And then after that, that's when I would apply those stories, right? So in order to do that, in order to save money or whatever, these are the things that I need. These are the information that I need available to me, and the steps that I'm going to take. Right. So I know it sounds like a lot, but I think that's where you get the difference. That's where you eventually get to a point of like, okay, maybe I'm doing one dashboard where these should be different ones, or it should be one dashboard that has slightly different variations based on those archetypes.
Some food for thought there. Thank you very much, team. I guess it's time we go on to the next question. We've got what, 24 minutes to go now. This is Startup Product and Tech Q&A. It's our 172nd session. We've been doing these for just over 4.5 years, and the idea is quite simple. We're here to help you, startup founders, build your early stage and get unstuck. There are no wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy because it's a learning curve for us all. You can ask our team anything to do with building your early stage, whether it's product roadmaps, designs, prototypes, automation, landing pages, apps, um, tech debt, full stack, launching your MVP, and anything else in between or beyond for that matter. If you are here with us on Microsoft Teams, all you have to do is drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic and then fire away with your introduction first, obviously, and then your question. If you're on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So if you do want to ask our amazing panelists anything, you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. And it doesn't matter whether you're working from a shared office in Shoreditch or cooking lunch in Liverpool or walking your dog in Surrey or changing baby nappers in Glasgow. All are welcome and it's all free, as you know. Um, so quickest way to get here from those live streams is to go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 172. You click join, it's a quick registration on Luma, and through there you'll then be able to join us here on the Microsoft Teams call. Now, if your questions today are not on product and tech, then do save them for the other conversations we run, please. Mondays, it's talent. Tuesdays, product and tech. Wednesdays, growth. Thursdays, fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK startup law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And again, you can RSVP to any of them on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. Let's go on to another question. This is from Manchester. Okay, so I'm a co-founder of a consumer marketplace app in Manchester. To put in brackets, I'm more tech savvy than my partner, while she's more commercially savvy. And then goes on to say, our technical debt is slowing down feature releases. I need advice on creating a systematic approach to tackling technical debt incrementally so it doesn't disrupt our roadmap, but still improves long-term maintainability. As the techier ones out of the panel, we'll perhaps start with Eugenio, and then we go to Nelly, and last but not least, Afonso, if you'd like to add anything.
Yeah, so technical debt is always a tricky situation, but there are different strategies. The first one is to think a feature in how it could expand. So just a very basic example. When you are developing something with the assumption that it needs a one-to-many relationship, for example, well, that is the stage in which you need to decide whether this may be a many-to-many instead. Because in the future, something may change. So be future-proof at every feature design is extremely important. The second thing is that as you create something, you need to track the technical debt that you are introducing. So this is something that you should be aware of even before you introduce it. Because otherwise, well, the technical debt may come from inexperience. So you definitely want to have an experienced overview of everything in terms of building, and that you should be aware of the technical debt you're introducing in order to fix it later, which is very important. And then in the end, considering that now the development flow is increasing in speed, because now we have AI tools, Cloud Code, GPT-5, and whatever. Now there's a chance to build, so to fix some of this technical debt as you build. So you have like 2 hours for a feature. Previously, these 2 hours would be entirely for that feature, But now, if you spot some errors, some problems there, you may want to take 10, 15, 20 minutes with the help of AI to improve that technical debt. And you can have this culture of fixing technical debts that you can incentivize somehow. But you need to so avoid it, the first choice. Keep track of it as you build, before you build. And then as you build one feature, you may need to introduce like 10% or 20% of your budget to fix them.
Thank you, Eugenio. Nelly?
Yeah, so first thing I'd like to say, especially for those on the call that might not be technical, is that technical debt is not always bad. It can actually be a strategical decision that you take as a company when you first start, or when you build an MVP, or you first start development. So it's not always as bad. It's very similar to if you start in a company as a founder, you might not have all of the HR documents, all the onboarding things. Those are kind of organizational debt, so it's similar. Now, where technical debt becomes an issue is that when we start looking at it strategically, fixing technical debt do not have the same value as seeing new features. So there is less correlation between what you could tell, client, customers, investors, or even your business, your co-founder. They can understand that we spend X amount of time or money and we have these features. But when it comes to technical debt, it's like a silent killer that people don't appreciate. One of the ways I try to really emphasize that when I work with my teams is first that you need to have tickets in a story that go in, so in a sprint that goes to technical debt. So whether you decide the proportion of the sprint that's allocated to technical debt, however you do that depends on the amount of debt and the impact on development. Secondly, you need to be able to assess the foundation of what you're building new features on and when they start rotting. So I even have pictures where I show that to my client because I was working for a PropTech startups, and we were just building, and we got to the point where even changing something basic in the UI, something that should take less than 2 hours of work, was taking my team much longer. So when you get to that perspective, it's not even a question of let's just add new features, because if I'm adding features that are part of the roadmap and we are tracking down the burn down chart and we're seeing that a lot of time is spent in certain areas, then you're actually better off looking at the technical debt and doing a full assessment around that particular area, have the appropriate tickets that are supporting the development of that feature, tag them as technical debt, and also make sure that they are being worked on. As Eugenio mentioned, with the AI tools now that you can fix areas as you move on, but please, be careful as well when using that strategy that whenever you build something, even if it's just to improve the code base, it's also the potential to improve a bank. So if you're going to do that, then think about the infrastructure that you have for automated testing, so that you do not add more issues as you are fixing the current technical debt. So to summarize, I would say, first, you need to be aware of technical debt. Again, as Eugenio mentioned, track that new one that you're introducing, even if it was a decision to create the technical debt in a way to move faster, still track it. You need to go back and fix it eventually. Be very clear on what your roadmap is. And as you are building for the roadmap, the question that should be discussed at every single planning or refinement calls is, what are the technical debt that are associated with these features? How are they going to slow us down? And what can we do about them? And more importantly, when you are presenting your features or the development to management, bear in mind that they are not going to get excited about technical debt. So you need to find the time and find the buy-in from them to build that. So the best way of doing that, and what I always do, is to show them what timeline or how many sprints do we need if we do not fix the technical debt, and how quickly we can move when we fix this. So although technical debt is a headache for the development team, is actually a business problem that is not appreciated from the other side of the business because it's invisible, but it's the job, especially of the tech lead or the CTO, to really bring the visibility to this issue by linking that to the goals of the roadmap and financial goals and the likes.
There were great points.
I also, Afonso, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I think I can add a few things. I mean, a great points already. I might just double down on a few things. Like Nelly mentioned before, I think the most important bit would be to ensure that you're talking the same language. So really trying to understand what is the that has commercial impact, and be able to show it, right? Be it like delays, like additional development time, or delays on getting feature release, or even better, like if you have customer feedback because say performance is bad, then those are the things that are really powerful and help you speak the same language. The other bit I would say is like try to categorize. I think that was touched. I think that they touched on it already, but it's try to categorize, try to understand what is the more tactical debt. Like this could be, I don't know, redundant code or some lack of testing or something like that. And I imagine those things what I've seen is that those things are usually tackled incrementally, either by allocating a specific time or having sure, like Nelly mentioned, having sure you have a few tickets and things like that. But if you have like the kind of debt that is more strategic, I think that's what needs to be tackled more aggressively. And this could be anything from like, moving from a monolithic architecture. This is something I've encountered in companies I've worked before, but also a point that Eugenie mentioned that I think was really important is things that would potentially impact your future roadmap, right? So you gave the example of the one-to-one or one-to-many relationship. So these are the kind of things that I also many times help engineers understand, is like where we want to go in the future. So we might be building an MVP now, but it helps knowing what's the vision, where we want to get to, so that decisions that we're making now are less likely to create that debt. And that's the problematic debt. That's the thing that, the decisions you're making that influence how your database is structured. And if you go down a route that limits you, this is going to create that kind of strategic debt that has massive commercial impact because it has slowed you down. It means that your API or something else is not done the right way, and that is the most problematic.
Thank you very much, Afonso. Thank you, Nelly and Eugenia. Right, we've got 11 minutes to go, so perhaps time for one, maybe even two questions, but let's try on one. And actually, Afonso, if you have a look at a question, the last question I'll put in there, I'll start with you first, but before that, I'll just do a quick reset of the conversation. This is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 172. We're here to help founders with whatever questions you may have as you build your early stage product or tech. Those questions can be on anything to do with the early stage building, whether that's product roadmaps, designs, prototypes. We just talked about tech debt. Could be automation, could be testing, could be launching your MVP, or even beyond for that matter. There are no wrong questions and no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. If you're here on Microsoft Teams and you've got questions, all you have to do is just drop your question, type it in the chat, and we'll then give you the mic, you introduce yourself and fire away with your question. If you're on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your question there live. So if you do have anything, you'll need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. Quickest way to do that, it's for you to go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. You scroll down and see, or find rather, today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 172. Click join. It's a quick registration on Luma. That gets you to a page where you'll find the link there, basically. And through that link, then you can tune here onto our call on Microsoft Teams. Now, if your questions today are not on product and tech, then please save them for the other conversations we run. Mondays is talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month is UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month is UK Startup Finances, and they're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site startuptoscaleup.club. But now, without further ado, we'll go on to question 4 for today. This is a dual usage defense tech founder. He's in Glasgow, seed stage, recently graduated from mechanical engineering and had a couple of stints, he says. The problem is that the problem is trying to solve, rather, is building drones that can be used for both agricultural monitoring as well as reconnaissance for military and law enforcement. The question he has is, we're trying to determine how much overlap we can have between our agricultural and military drone features. Should we develop a single versatile drone or focus on creating specialized versions for each application? What are the implications for design, marketing, and customer support in choosing one approach over the other? Yeah, that could be a tricky one.
Sorry, Anton.
Yeah, go ahead.
May I start with this, because I got to leave in literally like 2 minutes.
Cool, that's right. You can start first, then Afonso, then Nelly, please.
Yeah. So technically speaking, I would say that a single versatile drone could be fine. In the end, the base structure of the drone should be the same in both applications. So then you can add plugins here and there. But the real problem here is from the branding perspective, because as you have 2 different kinds of customers and they are very different in many sense, you probably want to appear in their mind as the solution to their problem, not a mixed solution to many other problems. So I would consider 2 brands, even 2 entities potentially sharing the same technology. But when it comes to answer to customer support requests from the military aspect, you want an answer that's tailored to them, and they need to feel that you're building this for them, not for everyone. So from the branding perspective, I will go for separate routes with the same versatile base.
I share Eugenie's take, especially on the marketing angle. I do think, what I do wonder, if one way to think about it as well is, from now speaking from a manufacturing point of view, if it's not necessarily like a single drone that is pretty much the same sold to markets, but at least one that has a shared component. So a lot of things that are like the base of it is shared, and then some add-ons are different. The reason why I'm thinking about this is I'm not entirely familiar with this space, but oftentimes whenever and this happens in like software as well, is anything that is government related, be it defense or not, tends to go through a lot more scrutiny and have a lot of other like the compliance angle, it's a lot stricter. So I wouldn't be surprised that there are things that would have to you'll have to research further, or you might even have to spend a bit more on, because it requires a specific tech or so on. So it might be that you'll have to eventually have a specialized version for the defense side of things, and it doesn't justify then selling the same one for the agricultural purpose, because it would be too costly. Right, I'm trying to think of examples in the parallel in the software world, where like if you do some, like when you sell to banking, for example, or to governments, there's a lot of things you have to take into account in terms of like the data, for example, how the data is stored and how it's developed. That is a lot more costly. So it's not, the companies don't go and adopt that approach and then they use it for everyone, right? They'll make it specific for the cases that are needed. So I think in this case, you might have to do the same approach, because trying to sell something for the more niche market defense and then repurpose it might mean that you end up with something that is too expensive for your for the agricultural audience.
Yeah,
It
I
makes sense.
definitely.
Nelly, yes.
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree with what Afonso said, especially when it comes to the scrutiny aspect of what you're trying to do. So one will definitely be more expensive than the other. So just without even going into a lot of details, as Afonso mentioned, anything that deal with military and high level of security will be more difficult, will be more expensive just because of that. Now, I will also take your question, and I keep on asking questions to people rather than answering them. But if I were to reframe your question in a bit, I would say, how big is your team, and can you actually split yourself in two? So you talked about implication and design, marketing, customer support, and I will even go as far as saying that every single decision that we will have to make within your company will have to target two different markets. We started this call by talking about the stage of your company, and what you want to do needs to be focused. And if you're going to go for two separate different things, you are completely duplicating all of the effort. There will be a point where you can do reuse, but the reusability usually will come at the point where you already know you've already penetrated one market, and then you can start expanding into a different market or a different avenue. So the things to bear in mind that will make things difficult for you was the security, compliance, all the checks, the governance, everything that I've also mentioned. To me, that would be the biggest blockers. The second thing, when it comes to marketing and sales, think about the effort that will be required to build the right contacts in one market and also do the same in the other market. You might want to look at which one will help you to start very quickly. You might want to do an analysis or even just to understand what does a POC will look like, right? Because essentially what you are trying to do is obviously to sell to one of the two markets. If you could even reframe it by looking at, if I were to do a POC for the drone, if you haven't built it or if you already built it, and you kind of want to approach agriculture or military from that perspective, what would be how difficult it is to climb that mountain? Because that would also help you understand what you need to change in your startup to get to that point and the impact that will come afterwards. So that's the first thing I will do, even before you invest a lot of time and money, is to really, as a team, try to do a bit of a pros and cons into the two. And if you want to take another step into that, the other step would be exactly the same as you will do in product development. It would be like maybe like A/B testing. So if you were to say that you focus maybe 1 week or 2 weeks where you try to get as many answers from the agricultural point of view, and then you do another MVP or literally testing assumption or hypothesis that focused on a 1 or 2 weeks that focus on the military sector, and get as much data as possible, talk to as many experts as possible, really think about not just the fact that you're thinking about the features right now. I'm actually pushing you to think about putting yourself in a scenario where you've already got a POC done and you are entering the market. What are the challenges? Because that is where it's going to be painful. Forgetting features, I mean, features are great and completely different set of challenges. But for what the question that you need to be answering is the impact of entering the industries and what will be required based on everything that I've said, and also what Afonso just said as well.
Absolutely agree. Everybody and their cousin at the moment is building a drones company. And guess what? All you need is, I don't know, Perplexity, Chat GPT, whatever you want to call it. Ask it a few questions and get somebody to build a drone for you in China. That is not going to get you contracts or purchasing or whatever you want to call it into any military. Now, I get it that you may feel reluctant to tell us what your secret sauce is here and, all that jazz. But another thing that I've learned is that when it comes to people stealing your idea, here's how it works. Those that can, they definitely don't have the time. And those that have got the time, very unlikely to be able to steal your idea. So they can't steal it. That's number one. Number two, worth mentioning, one of the regulars that used to join us on the Wednesday panel on growth, i.e. selling and going to market and all that jazz. He worked, or he was hired as a COO or whatever, I can't remember the title now, but early stage for quite a cool satellite company. And they, trying really hard to get into military. And I think they got some kind of pilots and stuff. But as soon as he went in, he said, forget all that. Let's go into agriculture. And within weeks, they ended up making a gazillion of dollars. And then they used that money to further develop and niche down and empower their military and other sort of offerings that they had. And last but not least on this matter, there's something called Diana, which is NATO's sort of accelerator program. They are absolutely brilliant. Now, yes, I know a lot of people can be frustrated because at the end of the day, they are government, they are military, they can be bureaucratic, but once you're in, you are then in the biggest market that has ever existed. It's over $1 trillion market of some of the most powerful and innovation-driven / seeking governments in the world. Maybe worth looking into who they've accepted so far, the work that they do, what they're looking for, white papers and all that jazz to then see. I know I'm not being very helpful here, but the point I'm trying to make is start with niching down first and then see where that takes you. I am now 4 minutes over the line, and I am very sorry to keep you longer than planned, Nelly and Afonso. But if I can have some parting words before I let you go, I'd really appreciate it. If not, totally understand. So we'll let Nelly go first and then Afonso. If you've got any parting words for us, please.
Definitely. Well, first of all, shout out to all the people that came from Glasgow. I grew up in Glasgow and went down south when I started university. So always lovely to bump into you guys. So parting words, I'd say definitely keep the mindset of iterating. You, as a startup, that's the biggest thing that you can do. I love technology. I absolutely love AI, vibe coding, all that kind of stuff. But nothing will ever replace being able to actually humanly talk to people and to your customer and keep them close. So the more you can also think about regardless of which stage you are at, always bear in mind, how do I get close to the industry? Who do I speak to? And more importantly, who are the people that I can just pick up the phone? They are expert in the domain that you're going into, and they can answer some questions. Those insights will be even it will be even better than just relying on the tools.
Thank you, Nelly. Alfonso?
Yeah, I would say definitely leverage AI as well, but leverage it for testing. I think many times we think about, now we can code things faster and do more things and all of that, but we don't necessarily need to use it for like what we call the production solution, what's going to be in front of the users. Like today we spoke quite a bit about making sure we spoke about archetypes and jobs to be done and all of these things that help you ensure you're doing the right solution for the right people. So I would say leverage these kinds of AIs to just create different concepts. Oftentimes within project design, we call it sacrificial concepts. So things that you create, you put it in front of people, and you're not necessarily committing to it. You're using it to facilitate the conversation, and there is a lot of power in that, right? So we spoke about the examples of the dashboards. Dashboards is one of the best candidates for this type of approach, because you could very well produce in a day several different types. You don't want too many, but say like you have 3 types, because you have an assumption that if you tweak it slightly, if you have one feature here, it's a bit more suitable to archetype A, and another feature is more suitable to archetype B, or just a priority, like how people read the information. So you can have different concepts, and you literally put them in front of people. You show them and say, okay, what are your first impressions, and let them talk through it. And then you can show them another concept and do exactly the same approach, and kind of leverage AI that way. It becomes a really powerful research partner as well.
Well, thank you very much to both of you. Really appreciate your time, as well as, of course, Eugenia, who had to leave earlier. I guess a few things before my parting words. Number one, just a reminder that we run 6 regular sessions helping founders hopefully go from startup to scale up. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month is UK startup law, and third Friday of each month is UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. They're all available on our website, startuptoscaleup.club. So again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. You can also find us on Luma, for example. And if you register on our calendar there, you'll then be able to keep an eye on all future sessions. We also have some amazing groups on WhatsApp for founders to connect with each other, investors, operators, of course, our amazing panelists and mentors. And I guess as far as my parting words, just remember that unfortunately the startup journey can be quite challenging, but at the same time, fortunately, it can be quite exciting too. So try to have some fun, be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. And next time, by the way, try and join us here interactively on Microsoft Teams audio rather than the live streams, because it makes for better conversations, and definitely it makes for much better answers, because our panels can go back and ask you questions. But otherwise, hopefully you'll join us tomorrow for Startup Growth, where we'll help and take questions from founders wanting to grow their business and go to market and make more money. So thank you again, and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.